I used to believe the person who knew me best could never hurt me the deepest. We built everything together. Dreams, late nights, promises whispered over coffee stains, until one phone call shattered it all. And in the silence that followed, I learned the sharpest betrayal comes from the one you trusted most. I stand here now, in the middle of this penthouse I designed myself. The one with the floor-to-ceiling windows that catch the late afternoon light like it's trying to apologize for something. My hand rests on the gentle curve of my belly, 5 months along, and I can feel the baby shift. Slow and sure, like she already knows this story is heavy. 8 years ago, none of this existed. Not the view. Not the quiet luxury of these walls. Not even the name on the door. Back then, it was just a garage on the edge of the city. 2 folding tables pushed together, covered in coffee stains and sketches that smelled like graphite and hope. Tatum and I sat across from each other every night until the streetlights buzzed on. She wore those big hoop earrings that caught the light when she laughed. Loud, fearless, the kind of laugh that made strangers turn around in restaurants. I was the quiet one, always sketching, always erasing, always doubting whether the lines I drew were good enough. But together, we were unstoppable. She knew people, the right people, the kind who owned penthouses like this one before they even moved in. I knew how to make those spaces feel like home instead of showrooms. We called it Merrill Studio because it sounded clean, professional, like we belonged in glossy magazines. And soon enough, we did. The first big break came on a Tuesday. A real estate developer walked in, suit sharp enough to cut glass, and said he wanted something different. Not another sterile white box, something that felt lived in, something that remembered people had heartbeats. Tatum charmed him in the first 5 minutes. I showed him the mood board I'd stayed up 3 nights to finish. He signed on the spot. 6 figures. We screamed in the parking lot afterward, hugging so hard I thought my ribs would crack. That was the beginning. Contracts rolled in like waves. Hotels, private residences. A boutique hotel chain that wanted every suite to tell a different story. We hired our first employee, then 3 more. Then an office with actual walls instead of garage doors. Reed, my husband, my anchor, was there through every late night. He'd bring takeout at 2 a.m., kiss the top of my head and whisper, "You're building something real, Sage. Don't ever forget that." And then there was Elena Voss. She was the legend, the woman who'd designed half the iconic spaces in this city before most of us were born. She'd mentored me for a summer internship years earlier, and even after I left, she'd call sometimes. One afternoon, over coffee that had gone cold, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sage, be careful with the people closest to you. The ones who know your dreams best are the ones who can steal them clean." I laughed it off. Of course I did. Tatum wasn't people. She was my sister in every way that mattered. We'd cried on each other's shoulders through breakups, celebrated every win with cheap champagne, promised we'd retire on a beach somewhere when we were old and gray. She was family, the kind you don't question. I should have listened to Elena, but I didn't. We kept building. Bigger. Brighter. Until one December night, after the biggest contract we'd ever landed, a waterfront estate that would be featured in every design magazine from here to Milan, we stood on the rooftop of the half-finished building, wind whipping our hair, glasses of sparkling cider in our hands because I was already pregnant with our first. Tatum pulled me into a hug so tight I could feel her heartbeat against mine. "We did it," she whispered, voice cracking just a little. "We really did it." I believed her. I believed every word. I believed this friendship would outlast everything. Trends, money, even time itself. I was wrong. Because 7 days later, everything I had built, everything we had built, would be taken from me. Not by strangers, not by competitors, by the one person I trusted most in the world. And when the dust settled, I would be left with nothing but a baby on the way, a husband holding me together, and the kind of silence that screams. So if you've ever trusted someone with your dreams, if you've ever handed over the keys to your future without a second thought, stay with me. Because this story isn't just about betrayal, it's about what happens when you realize the sharpest knife is the one you never saw coming, and how, against every instinct, you learn to stand up again, not to destroy the person who cut you, but to take back the life they tried to erase. That's the part worth hearing. That's the part that might save you one day. I remember the exact morning it started. The light was soft, the kind that filters through half-drawn blinds and makes everything feel safe. I was 7 months pregnant then, Rowan kicking steadily now, like she was already impatient to meet the world. Reed had left early for a site visit, kissing my forehead and promising to be back by lunch with the Thai food I'd been craving. I sat at the kitchen island, laptop open, finalizing the mood board for what would be our crown jewel, the waterfront estate. Every detail was mine: the reclaimed oak floors that warmed under bare feet, the custom brass fixtures that caught candlelight like stars, the quiet corners where people could finally breathe. This wasn't just a job. It was the proof we'd made it. My phone buzzed once. A text from Tatum. "Hey, can we hop on a quick call? Need to run something by you." I smiled. Of course. We still talked like that. Casual, constant, the way we had since the garage days. I hit call. She answered on the second ring, voice bright, too bright. "Sage, you're glowing, I bet. How's the little kicker?" We laughed about baby names for a minute, the way we always did. Then her tone shifted. Just a hair. A sliver of something colder. "So, the board met last night. Emergency session." I felt the first tiny prickle at the back of my neck. Emergency? Everything okay with the estate? A pause. Longer than it should have been. Not exactly. Look, they're restructuring, bringing in new capital, big players, the kind that can take us national. I leaned forward, hand instinctively cradling my belly. That's good, right? We've been talking about scaling. Yeah, it is good. Another pause. But they want fresh leadership. Someone who can handle the corporate side. I agreed to step in as interim CEO. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading before I could even process them. Interim? I echoed. My voice sounded small. Tatum, we're co-founders. Equal shares. You can't just... I know. But the investors, they were very clear. They want one face forward. And Sage? Your name came up in the discussion. Not in a good way. My heart gave a hard, uneven thud. What do you mean? She sighed, the sound practiced. There's talk. Online forums, old emails that surfaced. People saying you borrowed concepts from competitors, from Elena's old work even. Nothing proven, but perception matters now. We can't risk the brand. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the island. Tatum, those are lies. You know my process. You've seen every sketch, every reference. We built this together. I know, she said softly. But the board doesn't. And they won't wait for explanations. They're moving fast. The paperwork's already in motion. Paperwork. The word felt obscene. You're transferring shares? My voice cracked on the last syllable. Without telling me? Not all of them, she answered quickly. Just enough for control. It's temporary. For the good of the studio. You'll still get your cut. You'll be consulted on creative. Consulted. Like I was an outside vendor. Like Merrill Studio hadn't been carved out of my sleepless nights and my fingerprints on every surface. I couldn't speak. The baby kicked hard, as if she felt the tremor running through me. Tatum, I whispered. We promised each other. No decisions without both of us. You promised. Silence stretched thin and sharp. I'm sorry, Sage. This is bigger than us now. The call ended. I sat there staring at the screen until it went black. Then the notification started. First, an email from the board. Formal, cold, confirming the leadership transition and my stepping back for personal reasons. Then headlines, design blogs, industry forums, Sage Merrill accused of idea theft and Merrill Studio shakeup, screenshots of emails I'd never sent, mood boards that looked like mine but weren't, twisted just enough to look stolen. Client names leaked, confidential details I'd shared only with her. By afternoon, 3 projects canceled. 2 more paused indefinitely. The waterfront estate? Reassigned to a new team. I called her again. Straight to voicemail. I called Reed. He was on a job site. When he picked up, I couldn't even form the words. I just sobbed into the phone. He dropped everything. Drove home faster than was safe. When he walked through the door, I was on the floor, back against the cabinets, arms wrapped around my middle like I could shield Rowan from what was happening. He knelt in front of me, face pale. What happened? I told him. Every word Tatum had said, every headline I'd seen. He listened without interrupting, then pulled me against his chest. His heart was pounding as hard as mine. That night, I found the podcast clip. Tatum on some Rising Stars show, voice smooth and confident. Sage is incredibly talented, but the demands of scaling, well, she's entering a new chapter. Motherhood. Family. It just wasn't the right fit for where Merrill Studio is headed. We wish her all the best. Not the right fit. I sat in the dark living room, laptop glowing on my lap, volume low so Reed wouldn't hear me crying again. The host laughed at something Tatum said. The sound felt like glass breaking inside my ribs. Reed came out of the bedroom, saw me, took the laptop gently from my hands and closed it. You don't have to watch this tonight, he said. Or ever. But I already had. And in that moment, sitting there with the city lights smearing across the windows, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger yet. Not revenge. Just a deep, quiet recognition. The woman I'd trusted with my secrets, my sketches, my dreams, had used every single one of them against me. She hadn't just taken the company. She'd taken the version of myself I liked best. The one who believed people could be good, that loyalty was real, that friendship could survive anything. Reed sat beside me on the floor. He didn't try to fix it. He just held my hand until the shaking stopped. I stared into the darkness, one palm on my belly, feeling Rowan move again. Slow, steady, alive. And for the first time since the call, I whispered to her, to the tiny life I hadn't even met yet. I'm sorry, baby. I let someone hurt us. But I promise, I'm going to make this right. Not for the studio, not for the headlines, for us. Because some knives cut so deep you don't bleed right away. You just stand there, stunned, watching the life you built drain out, until the pain finally wakes you up. And when it does, you don't scream. You start planning. The days after that phone call blurred into something gray and endless. I didn't leave the apartment for a week, maybe longer. Time lost its edges. Reed tried to keep the world turning. He cooked meals I didn't eat. He answered the door when delivery came. He sat beside me on the couch when the silence got too loud, his hand resting on my knee like an anchor I couldn't quite feel. I kept staring at the nursery door, still half-painted, pale blue walls I'd chosen months ago when everything felt possible. Now the color looked like regret. My laptop stayed closed on the coffee table. I couldn't bear to open it. Every time I thought about sketching, my hand shook. What if the lines weren't mine anymore? What if Tatum had poisoned every idea I'd ever had? I cried in the shower so Reed wouldn't hear, hot water running down my face, mixing with tears until I couldn't tell which was which. I whispered to Rowan in the dark. Apologies she couldn't understand yet. I'm sorry, baby. Mommy doesn't know how to fix this. The depression settled like fog. Thick, quiet, suffocating. I stopped checking emails, stopped answering texts. The industry chatter I used to crave now felt like static. I was afraid to hear my name, afraid it would be followed by the one who stole ideas. One afternoon, maybe 3 weeks in, maybe 4, the doorbell rang. I ignored it. Reed was out buying groceries. The bell rang again. Then a voice through the door, low and familiar. Sage, it's Elena. Open up, child. I'm not leaving. I froze. Elena Voss hadn't called in months, hadn't visited since before the pregnancy showed. I dragged myself to the door on legs that felt borrowed, opened it just a crack. She stood there in her signature black coat, silver hair pulled back, eyes sharp as ever. She didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and looked around like she was assessing damage. You look like hell, she said plainly, but hell is survivable. I couldn't meet her eyes. I'm fine. You're not. She set her bag down, crossed to the couch, and sat, patted the cushion beside her. I obeyed like a child. She didn't touch me, didn't offer a hug. She just spoke, voice steady as stone. I told you once, be careful with the people closest. You laughed. I let you. That was my mistake too. Tears burned behind my eyes again. I trusted her. Completely. I know. Elena reached into her bag, pulled out a small notebook, leather-bound, worn at the edges. She placed it in my lap. Open it. Inside were sketches. Old ones. Mine. From that summer internship years ago. Pages of ideas I'd forgotten I'd drawn. Beside each one, Elena had written notes in her precise handwriting. Strengths, flaws, potential. You had fire then, she said. You still do. It's just buried under ash right now. I traced a finger over one sketch. A simple chair. Nothing fancy. I don't know if I can draw anymore. You will. She stood. When you're ready, and when you are, call me. I don't mentor quitters. She left as quietly as she'd come, but she left the notebook on the table, a small, deliberate act of faith. 2 days later, another knock. This time, a young woman, early 20s, dark curls pulled into a messy bun, eyes red-rimmed but determined. Leila Rivera. She'd been our assistant for 2 years, the one who organized everything Tatum never bothered with. I heard what happened, she said, voice shaking just a little. I was let go the same week. She said I was redundant. I know why. I saw too many emails. She held out a flash drive. I saved what I could. Timestamps, original files, proof the ideas were yours. I stared at it like it might burn me. I can't pay you, I whispered. I'm not asking. Lila's chin lifted. I just want to work. For someone who actually values the work. I took the drive. She left her number. Said she'd wait. That night, Reed found me at the kitchen table staring at the flash drive. You don't have to open it tonight, he said gently. I know. My voice cracked. But if I don't, she wins forever. He pulled a chair close, sat beside me. We plugged it in together. The files were there. Clean. Dated. Mine. Reed squeezed my hand. You're not starting from zero, Sage. You're starting from truth. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden epiphany. Just a small crack in the fog. The next morning, I opened my sketchbook. Hand trembling. I drew one line, then another. A simple room. Nothing grand. Just a corner with soft light, a chair, a plant, a place someone could sit and feel safe. It took 4 months. 4 long, quiet months. I worked at the dining table while Rowan slept in her bassinet nearby. I posted anonymously online. Grainy photos, no name, no credit, just the work. Comments started small, then more. People asking, "Who is this?" People saying, "This feels like home." One night, Rowan finally asleep, Reed working late. I finished the first real piece since the fall. A full residential concept. Warm wood, layered textures, light that invited you in instead of pushing you away. I saved the file, stared at the screen. Then I leaned down, kissed Rowan's tiny forehead, and whispered into the quiet room, "I won't let her take your future too, baby. This is ours now." The fire hadn't died. It had just been waiting, smoldering, patient, refusing to go out. And when it finally caught again, it burned clean. The first real project came through anonymously. A small request on a design forum I'd started lurking in again. Late at night, when Rowan was finally asleep and the apartment felt safe enough to breathe. A young couple, first home, modest budget, wanted something that doesn't feel like everyone else's. No flash, no Instagram bait, just warmth. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before I typed back. I didn't use my name, just a simple handle. Quiet spaces. I sketched on the dining table while Reed slept on the couch beside me, too tired to make it to bed after another long day keeping us afloat. A living room with soft textiles, layered lighting, corners that invited you to sit and stay. Nothing revolutionary, just honest. When I hit submit, my finger hovered over the button like it might burn me. The couple loved it. They paid in full before I even asked. Word spread quietly. Small jobs trickled in. A bedroom refresh. A home office that doubled as a nursery. Each one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I thought Tatum had stolen. Lila showed up one morning with coffee and a notebook. She didn't ask for a salary. She just said, "I can handle the emails, the calls. You stay hidden until you're ready." I hesitated. The fear was still there. Sharp. Familiar. What if this was another trap? What if trusting again meant losing everything twice? But Lila looked at me with eyes that had seen the same betrayal. "I lost my job because I wouldn't delete your original files," she said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." I handed her the laptop. She became the bridge, screening inquiries, protecting my name, turning quiet spaces into something people started whispering about. Meanwhile, Marcus Kane kept showing up at Reed's office. Old college friend of Reed's, now a quiet lawyer who specialized in intellectual property. He never pushed. He just brought folders, emails Tatum had sent to the acquiring firm, timestamps that didn't match her story, a contract draft with my signature forged, subtle but unmistakable to someone who knew my hand. Marcus slid one page across the table one evening while Rowan napped. "Proof she sold 3 of your concepts outright, in exchange for the CEO title. It's not speculation anymore." I stared at the documents until the words blurred. Part of me wanted to scream, to call every magazine, every client, and shout the truth. But the bigger part, the part that still woke up shaking at 3 a.m., remembered Elena's words. "Revenge is loud," she'd told me once, over the phone. "Redemption is quiet." So I stayed quiet. Elena called one rainy afternoon. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I've got someone you should meet." Audrey Klein, investigative journalist. The kind who took months on a story and never printed a word until every fact was nailed down. Elena arranged the introduction. No pressure, no deadline. Audrey listened on speaker while I fed Rowan in the background, her tiny fist wrapped around my finger. I don't need you to go public yet, Audrey said. I just need to know the truth. If it checks out, I'll follow where it leads. I told her everything. The garage, the promises, the forged emails, the podcast clip that still played in my head some nights. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said only, "I'll be in touch." And then she was gone. No fanfare, no promises, just patience. Nights were still hard. I'd scroll through old articles sometimes, when Reed was asleep and the apartment was too still. Headlines that called me disgraced. Comments that said I'd gotten what I deserved. I'd cry silently into a pillow so Rowan wouldn't wake. Then I'd get up at dawn, make coffee, and draw again. One line, one room, one small act of defiance. Reed watched me do it. He never told me to stop looking. He just sat beside me on those mornings and said the same thing every time. Justice isn't destroying her, Sage. It's taking back what's yours. Rowan turned 6 months old. She laughed now. Loud, sudden bursts that startled me every time. She reminded me that life kept moving, even when I felt frozen. Then the email came. Subject: Commission inquiry, residential retreat. A private client. High profile, but discreet. They'd seen my anonymous posts. They wanted a full home redesign. Warm, human, timeless. The budget was generous. The timeline flexible. They wanted to meet quiet spaces in person. Lila screened it 3 times. No red flags. Real people. Real money. I sat with Reed at the kitchen table after Rowan went down. My hands were shaking when I opened the contract draft. They wanted the work credited, not anonymously. They wanted my name. Sage Merrill, not the old studio. A new one. I looked at Reed. Tears were already falling. He pulled me close. "You earned this," he whispered. "Not her. You." I signed the contract that night. Then I opened a blank file, typed the new name at the top. Merrill Atelier. No studio. No shared legacy. Just mine. I leaned back in the chair, hand on my chest, feeling my heartbeat slow. Rowan stirred in her crib. Soft coo, then quiet again. I walked to her room, lifted her warm weight against me. She nestled into my shoulder like she belonged there. I kissed her temple and whispered into the dark, "This is my beginning, baby." Not hers. The quiet counterstrike wasn't loud. It wasn't vengeance in flames. It was a single signature, a new name on a page, a baby breathing against my neck, and the slow, steady realization that I was no longer waiting for permission to take my life back. The article dropped on a Tuesday morning in early spring. I wasn't looking for it. I'd stopped Googling my name months ago. But Reed came into the kitchen holding his phone, face calm in that deliberate way he gets when he's protecting me from the storm. "Audrey published?" he said quietly. I set Rowan down in her high chair, cereal already scattered like confetti, and took the phone. The headline was simple. No sensationalism. Just truth in black and white. Merrill Studio collapse, forged signatures, stolen designs, and a betrayal at the top. Audrey had laid it out like a blueprint. Clean lines, no embellishment, timestamps on emails, side-by-side comparisons of my original sketches next to the ones Tatum had sold, the forged transfer documents, witness statements from former employees, and the detail that made my stomach turn. Tatum had fired Leila Rivera the same day she discovered Lila had backed up the original files. Not redundancy, cover-up. I scrolled slowly. Each paragraph felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. The acquiring firm issued a statement within hours. They severed ties with Tatum immediately. No graceful exit, no severance package, just a public cut. Merrill Studio, the name we'd built together, dissolved quietly in the aftermath. Clients pulled out. The waterfront estate was reassigned again, this time to an independent firm. The office space went dark. The website vanished. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just sat there, Rowan babbling happily in her chair, and felt something loosen in my chest. Not victory. Relief. 3 days later, the doorbell rang at dusk. Reed answered. I heard his voice drop low. Warning. Then hers. Tatum. I walked into the hallway. She stood on the threshold, coat damp from the rain, eyes swollen, mascara streaked like she'd been crying for hours. Sage, she whispered. Please. Reed stepped aside but stayed close, close enough that I could feel him behind me, solid and silent. Marcus was there too, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching like a quiet sentinel. Tatum looked smaller than I remembered. No power suit, no confident smile, just a woman who'd lost everything she'd gambled for. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, voice cracking. I wanted to be bigger, better than what we were. I thought if I could get the capital, the title, I could make us both unstoppable. She took a shaky step forward. I only wanted to be more successful than you. The words hung there, raw, ugly, honest in a way she'd never been before. I looked at her, really looked, at the woman who'd once laughed with me until we couldn't breathe, who'd held my hand through my first real heartbreak, who'd promised forever in a garage that smelled like sawdust and possibility. And I felt pity, not hate, not even anger anymore, just a tired, quiet pity. Success isn't stealing someone else's dreams, Tatum, I said softly. It's building your own, even when it's hard, even when it's slow. She started to cry then, real sobs, shoulders shaking. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I believed her. In that moment, I believed the tears were real. But sorry doesn't rebuild what was broken. I took a breath. I forgive you the debt, I said. The emotional one. I'm not carrying it anymore. She looked up, hopeful for a second. But I'm not letting you back in, I continued. Not my home, not my work, not my life. Her face crumpled. Reed put a gentle hand on my shoulder. Marcus stepped forward just enough to make his presence known. Tatum backed away slowly. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just turned and walked into the rain. I closed the door, leaned against it for a long moment. Then I slid down to the floor and let the tears come. Quiet ones, cleansing ones. I didn't sue. I didn't chase the old company. I let it go. Instead, 2 weeks later, I published my own piece. No names, no accusations. Just my story. Anonymous at first, then signed with my real name. A letter to every young designer out there who's ever handed their heart to a partner, a collaborator, a friend. Protect your work, I wrote. Not out of fear, but out of love for what you create. Trust is beautiful until it isn't. And when it breaks, don't let it break you. Build again. Build better. Build yours. The piece went viral in our small world. Messages poured in. Designers sharing their own scars, thanking me for saying what they couldn't. Tatum disappeared from the industry. Last I heard, she'd moved to a quiet suburb outside the city. No social media, no comebacks, just silence. And I kept going. We moved into the new house last fall. I designed every inch of it. Warm woods, soft corners, windows that let the light pour in like forgiveness. One Saturday morning, Rowan, 2 years old now, ran across the living room, bare feet slapping hardwood, laughing like the world was hers to chase. She crashed into my legs, arms up, demanding to be lifted. I scooped her up. Reed came in from the kitchen, coffee in hand, smiling the way he does when he knows I'm finally home in my own skin. I looked at him over Rowan's curls. at the life we'd rebuilt, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Justice isn't revenge, I said quietly. He nodded, waited. It's when you take yourself back, I continued, and let the other person face their own consequences. Rowan reached for his face. He kissed her palm. I rested my head against his shoulder, our daughter between us, the house quiet except for her happy breathing. And in that moment, sunlight on the floor, toys scattered like evidence of joy, I understood. Some wounds scar, some betrayals echo, but they don't have to define the rest of your story. You get to write the ending, not with fire, not with fists, with quiet, stubborn, beautiful truth. And that is enough. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West, stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice, imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process. But every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.